off the ground and really pouring into them on a daily basis, holding their hands through negotiations, through contracts, and providing value through training like she's doing this morning. So thank you so much, Kendall. We really appreciate you.
Problem. I like this stuff. I like talking about real estate. I like teaching about real estate, and this gives me a good outlet to be able to do that. So let me see. Give it a couple more minutes. And then I'm gonna mute. There you go. All right, so we'll get started now just talking about, can y'all see the full view or on Facebook?
I think you're on speaker view, so when you talk,
Okay, perfect.
it shows up with, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was coming through correctly. So just in getting started, we thought this was a good topic to have today because we're getting a lot of questions from our agents, a lot of questions from people that are working a lot in this market. You see it on Shift Talk all the time, people commenting on all the trouble that they're having with getting offers locked down. I know several of the agents that I'm coaching are in the thick of it right now with some of their clients. And, you know, after multiple lost offers, and when you're submitting and you think you're submitting a great offer, 10K over list, and surely that's going to win the deal, and then the listing agent tells you that that's not enough, that can be a beat down over time. And if we're feeling it as agents, we know that our clients are feeling it. So what I think is one of the most important things in real estate when you start working with any client is setting expectations. When we bring new agents onto the team, our whole first meeting is setting expectations. Here's what we expect from you. Here's what you should expect from us. Here's how we want the communication to be going forward. It's just really important when you're going into a working relationship with anyone to set the expectation and make sure that both sides know what they're getting into and know what to expect. That also sets the stage for you to blow the person away and follow through on all of the things that you're setting the expectations for. So for the purposes of today, I just want to go through the whole process with buyers and talk about expectations you should be setting throughout the process specific to this market. Some of the things are kind of in general markets, this is what you should do, but I really want to hone in on things that are specific to this market. I think one of the things that we're seeing a lot of with incoming leads and incoming calls is, you know, as the agent, you really want to inform the client on how crazy this market is. But it's important to do that in a way that's not completely deflating. It doesn't scare them away from the market. You've got to kind of ease into it in those first couple conversations. So the traits of a seller's market: fewer homes on the market. We're seeing really low inventory still. Hopefully that gets better over the next couple months as we get closer to summer. Prices are rising, many multiple offer situations, appraisals are coming in low. It's just nuts. There are so many buyers out there that want homes. Interest rates are still very, very low. Even though they've started creeping up a little bit, they're still very low. So there's just more buyers out there than there are homes to buy. And that is creating an issue for everyone. You can say that in a way that that doesn't scare them off. I wouldn't go immediately into I have one client who's lost out on 4 offers. I would not go immediately into that. You don't want to scare them off, but you do want to set the stage for the market's competitive. And I just want to make sure that I'm informing you correctly throughout the process so that you know what to expect as we're going through. This can be a normal buyer consult conversation, or it can be a conversation that you have throughout the process of them buying. I think it's important in the beginning to talk about getting pre-approved, to talk about looking for homes, to talk about setting up their search and all of those things. And I also think it's important to set the stage for, you're probably going to be paying a little bit more in earnest money to be competitive, maybe a little bit more in option money and all that. So we'll walk through all of those things. Starting out with the pre-approval. I've seen several situations lately where listing agents aren't even approving showings until they have a pre-approval letter in hand. So that kind of kicks it up a notch from what we're used to, where you need a pre-approval letter to submit an offer. Now, in some cases, you need a pre-approval letter just to see the home. And I understand that that weeds out a lot of people for the seller, and makes it a little harder on the listing agent because they've got to take a look at all those pre-approval letters. But it's more important than ever that your client get pre-approved early on in the process. Get them with a lender, make sure that they're pre-approved, and explain to them that pre-approval letter is required with all offers. The sellers will not consider an offer unless you have a pre-approval letter from a lender stating that you can qualify for that loan. That's no different than what we're used to. Um, but I think sometimes we as agents put that off a little bit because we don't want to be too forward early on in the process. It's not a time to not be forward. You've got to ask them to get pre-approved early on in the process. Maybe after you've seen a couple homes with them and built some rapport, then you talk to them, set up a next steps conversation about, okay, now I kind of have an idea of what you're looking for. We've talked a little bit about the buying process, but just because this market is a little crazier, I want to make sure and set you up for success. I would schedule a phone conversation with them or meet at Starbucks and get coffee, whatever it might be. I would schedule something with them after you've seen a couple homes and built that rapport where you can get on the phone and really talk through the home buying process. If you have something tangible that you can send to them about the home buying process, that's great too, because that puts it all in writing that I prepared you for this, here it is. Um, when you're talking about the pre-approval, you also want to let them know that a lot of times right now we're advising our buyers to look a little bit under what they're pre-approved for. So whether that's 10K, 20K under, you can kind of gauge that based on your experience in the price point and what you're seeing with other buyers that you're working with in that price point. But it's not unusual right now for buyers to have to look 10 to 20K below what they want to end up spending so that they can go over and be competitive. You also want to talk to them during this time about making sure they know what cash they have, make sure they know their finances, and kind of prepare them to start getting an idea for if they do want to bring more cash to the table at closing. If you're looking at a specific price point, I think that's something good to prepare them for, and not to spring on them right when they're writing an offer. So how much money are you willing to bring over appraisal if it comes to that? It's good to have that conversation early on so they really solidify their financial situation and they know what they have and what they're willing to work with. So those things are really important to do right off the bat. I always set the expectation about setting up a search. I think clients, I've heard a lot of complaints in the past about, well, my agent just set up a search for me and they never looked at it again. They were just automatically sending me properties and they never sent me anything specific. I gave them my criteria and they just sent me a lot of random homes. And we've all done that. I've done that, not saying that I haven't. But I usually set the expectation up front that I'm going to set up a search on MLS. Now, MLS is not as user friendly on the consumer side as some of the third party apps and websites out there that you're probably looking at every night when you lay down to go to bed if you're in an active home search. So when I set up my search, I'm going to take all of your criteria down, but I'm going to be asking you questions. I'm going to be asking them questions along the way of, do you really need the fourth bedroom, or would an office work for that? Do you really need a game room, or would just an office space work? Do you really need the half-acre lot, or would it be okay if it was 0.4 acres, something like that? I'm asking a lot of those questions to really suss out what's a want and what's a need. And I communicate that to them and let them know that I'm going to set up the search accordingly. Everyone knows, all of y'all know, that when you're setting up a search, you can weed things out really fast by including criteria that is not listed in that listing. So I let them know that when I'm setting up a search, I've got all your criteria, but I'm going to make it as broad as possible. I'm going to try and hone in on one specific area, and I'm going to try and hone in on one specific price point. But criteria other than that, I'm going to leave pretty broad and kind of the lowest level, like 3-bed, 2-bath. If that's okay, if that's the minimum you're willing to accept, then I'm going to put that as the minimum bedroom and bathroom count. I also let them know that I know you're going to be looking on Zillow. There may be things that you find on Zillow that aren't coming up on the search. If you see something like that, send it to me so I can make sure and do an audit of my search, make sure that I have everything set up correctly. I may have set up a minimum square footage of 2,200 and this house is 2,187. So it didn't show up on your search because of that. At that time, I'll ask you if you want me to adjust that part of your search to get more of those smaller properties in there. Um, Let them know it's all about open communication. If you're not seeing the things in your search that you're wanting from me, just let me know. We can open it up more or we can tighten it a little bit more. That's an easy fix to make. Um, I think a lot of times clients are looking on Zillow and they get frustrated with us as realtors because, well, she didn't send me this property. Well, what about this property? This looks great. Well, once you dig into it, it's actually been pending for 10 days. It's already gone. It was already gone before you started looking for a house. All of that open communication and setting that expectation from the get-go is huge, huge, huge with buyers. And especially with people who maybe don't trust you yet. You know, you've just met them a couple times and they don't know your work ethic. They don't know what you typically do. Setting all those expectations are just really important for them to get them in a good mindset, like you are truly working for them. Um, Something that we teach our agents to say when they start working with a buyer is, you know, I'm your consultant through this process. I'm not a salesperson. It's not my job to sell this specific home to you. I'm consulting you through the process. I can show you any house that's on the MLS, any for sale by owner, any new construction home, and I want to make sure that you're represented in that. I work for you, and I'm your consultant through this process to make sure that you're offering good competitive terms, to make sure when it is the house that you want that we are coming in with our best offer and putting our best foot forward. And you're a consultant, not a salesperson, and get that through your head. You're not always trying to sell that specific house. You're trying to make sure that it fits your client's needs and make sure that they're happy. Um, Next, I want to talk about utilizing your resources. So I'm sure you'll see this on Shift Talk, where people will draw their boundaries, send it out where to Shift Talk saying, I have buyers looking in these areas, these price points, all of that. Let your clients know that you're doing that. Don't keep that a secret. Let them know that you network constantly with other agents, whether it's in your brokerage, if you have a brokerage specific Facebook page, if you're a member of Shift Talk, Broker Underground, any of the other web or any other Facebook groups out there, you're probably going to little lunch and learn things by title companies and lenders. All of those networking opportunities. When you're talking to agents, ask them if they have anything coming up in the price points that are difficult for you or with the criteria that's difficult for your clients right now. All of that networking can really help. Every time we have a buyer need, I have send out to a group of friends, send out to the team. That networking can really come in handy and it can get your people locked down on something early on or know when something's coming. Let your client know. My point in that is let your client know that you're doing that because they don't always see you doing that behind the scenes and working for them behind the scenes. Something that through the process, I use this with buyers and sellers actually, and you've probably heard me talk about doing this before on some tricks of the trade that we've done. I utilize the list price to sold price ratio a lot. So if people are not being honest with themselves when they're making offers, if I'm telling them, you know, you've got to go above list price in this price point, if we're offering at list price, it's not really setting us up in the best situation if the house is priced at 180. That's probably going to go over list price. So what I'll do is I'll pull like properties, not necessarily comps like you would pull comps to determine value, but pull like properties that are in the same type of condition, same area, and just show them how many of those homes sold at list price or above. Show them the percentage of list price to sold price ratio or the actual list price versus the actual sales price and no closing costs were paid. Use the data that the MLS has for you to inform your clients because sometimes they just don't know and sometimes they think they know better. They have to lose out on a couple houses before they start to learn. I utilize that list price to sold price ratio, the closing costs, generic comps like that a lot. That's not necessarily comps to price out the house, but comps to show them what some trends are in that area with offers and sales prices. So make sure to keep tabs on that as well as your client is interested. If they're pushing back on making a realistic offer, you can always use that data to show where things are. So let's talk about the contract price process a little bit and some trends that we're seeing. So buyers are paying the title policy a lot more. Buyers are paying for survey a lot more. We're seeing a lot of increase in option money. So, I think somebody on one of my agents the other day did $350 for 7 days option period. We're just seeing a big increase in that sort of thing. Make sure and prepare them for that. I would prepare them early on in that conversation that you have with them about the market and about the whole process. I would prepare them at that time that they might have to pay for the title policy. That's why they need to know what cash they have on hand and how much they're willing to spend on this house. They might have to pay the title policy. They might be okay with waiving the home warranty. And if you know that up front, great. We aren't going to ask the seller for a home warranty. Know their timeline to know if they're able to give the seller a lease back after closing or not. Know if they're willing to go over list price or over appraisal. That's more specific to the property because it's going to depend on that property's terms. But at least you've had that conversation early on in the process at that point and can kind of talk to them more once you find that perfect house on how they want to handle that. But definitely prepare them early on that, we're seeing a lot of buyers paying title policy to be competitive. We're seeing a lot of high option fees for a short option period. Make sure you have your inspector on deck. Make sure you have someone that's preferred who will pencil you in before you're under contract so that when you're under contract, you can get that solidified, scheduled, and get that done in the first few days. If that ends up going to day 5 of the 7-day option, that's going to create problems. So make sure you have your ducks in a row in that regard as well. Make sure they know this is a generic thing to prepare them for, but in any market, but let them know that they have to pay the inspection upfront. They have to pay the appraisal upfront in most cases. Those things, if they're first-time home buyers, they're not going to know that, and they're going to be shocked when they get that letter from the lender, when they talk to the inspector, and that's not something that comes out at closing. I've had that really throw people for a loop, and it's a small amount, but they need to know that it's coming. They need to know that that's outside of closing. Something that might get you something and might not is asking why you lost the offer. I think sometimes agents are so mad that they lost the offer that they just get mad and don't ever say anything. Ask the agent, the listing agent, why you lost the offer. That gives you so much insight into whether it's something you can change or whether it's something that was kind of a lost cause from the get-go. 2 scenarios. One of my agents has had a really rough time with some of her clients. She's submitting solid offers and they keep losing out. She asked the most recent agent, what did we do? What did we do wrong? And they said, you didn't do anything wrong. You were willing to come up with this much money, which was the buyer's max over the appraisal, but this person was able to come up with double that over the appraisal no matter where it came in. So that gives her something to take back to her clients to say, look, this was nothing that you or I did. This just wasn't meant to be in this scenario. It just was not meant to be. They just had a better offer and it was something that we couldn't compete with. On the flip side, I had, this is kind of before the craziness started, early fall, late summer last year, I had a buyer who was a solid buyer, first day on the market with this house. We were one of the first showings in the door, maybe a second or third showing, submitted an offer a couple hours later. We were the only offer on the table at that time, and I was feeling really confident in it. I didn't have the lender call. It was a $350,000 house, and they were putting down like $150,000. They were solid conventional buyers. And I didn't have the lender call and let the agent know how solid they were. And when I asked the agent why they went with another offer, because I could not make sense of it, she said, well, the other lender called me. That's on me. That's not on my clients. That's on me. And that was a big learning thing for me, to not get cocky with my offer for being the first person in the door and being the first offer in and thinking we would get it locked up quickly with having such a solid offer. So just ask why, and then you can assess whether that's something you need to change or if that's something that was just a lost cause from the beginning. Now, that's a tough pill to swallow when it's something that you did and you could have advised differently, but it will only help you grow. So it's worth asking for sure. And hopefully the agent will give you something, even if they, don't tell you specifics about the scenario. Hopefully they'll give you something that will be beneficial for you. And beneficial for your clients too, honestly, because sometimes clients are just as lost as we are about, or even more lost than we are about what happened and why they're not winning these offers. They can start getting frustrated with you in some cases, and you want to just make sure to mitigate that as much as possible. Before I call a buyer with bad news, I always check the MLS to see if there's anything new in their criteria that's come up, just to give them like, hey, I know we lost out on this one, but this one just came on 2 hours ago. Let's go look at it. Are you available this afternoon? Just to keep their spirits up, let them know that you're working for them. Put a blast out on Shift Talk. Does anyone have anything coming up in this criteria? So you can tell them, I've already reached out to my network. I've already checked MLS. I'm going to keep on it. I've checked private MLS. I'm going to keep on it for you. I'm working for you, and I'm really trying to get something locked down for you. Just communicate what you're doing. A lot of times they don't know that you're really working for them in the background because they don't see it happening. Something else that I've talked to a couple of our agents about doing is if they're losing out on a few homes in a row and they're really getting down about it, send them cookies, send them pizza for dinner, send something over to them that will kind of lift their spirits and let them know that, you feel bad and you're there right there with them in the process. I've sent Tiff Streets to clients before in that situation, and that's always a nice pick me up. So just a little happy that could boost a mood when things get difficult. And then once you get under contract with someone, finally, I think most buyers who have lost out on a couple already feel this. So you have to set that expectation still, but it's not something that they're immune to at that point or blind to at that point. So during the repair phase, they can't be picky. They cannot be asking for crazy repairs. This is just not the market for that. Sometimes people feel like, well, I went 10K over list price, so I want them to fix all of these things. Well, yes, you went 10K over list price, but there were 6 other offers right below us that these sellers could say no to everything. If you back out, it's really not that bad for the seller because they can just go back to one of these offers. So unfortunately, that's a characteristic of the seller's market, that the buyers just aren't getting as many things fixed during that repair phase right now. I think most buyers, after they've lost out on a few homes, they're just thankful to have something under contract and be set and be done looking. But still something that I would talk to them about. At this point, you've probably already talked about appraisal until you're blue in the face and until they're sick of hearing about appraisals, the sell side's sick of hearing about appraisals, we're all sick of hearing about appraisals. But just let them know that, that's the last hurdle that we've got to jump. Let them know that you're checking in with the lender, you're contacting the lender to make sure that their loan is on the right track and on the right track for closing. Keep a watch on the third-party financing days, keep a watch on the appraisal days if you have that addendum in there, and just make sure that you're watching all of that for your client in the background, because that's on you. They don't know to do that. They don't know to look for those third-party financing days. And then the last point I want to make is just that mindset matters in general. In this market, it is tough. It's easy to get defeated. It's easy to give up on people. It's easy for your clients to give up on you. You have to keep a positive mindset. I'm not saying keep a positive mindset just for the sake of keeping a positive mindset. Still be a realist. Still set expectations. But you have to stay positive. If you start getting defeated, that attitude trickles down to your buyers, and that is not going to make for a fun process for anyone. They're going to sense that you're unsure of yourself, and they're going to sense that you're down about it. They're going to feel like they're bothering you, or maybe they're feeling like you're not working for them. you've got to keep a positive attitude. You've got to keep a we will find the one attitude. And that's really hard to do in this market. But unfortunately, it just is kind of where we are right now, and everyone's in it. And it is a little comforting when you talk to other agents and they're having the same situations and scenarios. That makes it a little bit better. And so just know that we're all in this together. Keep a positive mindset, and lean on your friends in the business when things happen like this, to see what they're doing with their offers, what they're seeing on their listings and offers coming in, so we can all kind of learn from each other through this. So that is all I have. I don't have Facebook Live pulled up, so I'm not sure if there are any questions or anything on that. I'm going to pull it up real quick.
I have it pulled up here, and I don't see any questions, but if you guys do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll relay that over to Kendall.
Perfect. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. My cell is 210-632-4780. My email is kendall@neilteam.com. I'm happy to talk through any sort of crazy scenarios and help you through it, talk you up a little bit if you're getting down. Like I said, it's all about kind of learning from each other, sticking together. I learn a lot just from what my agents are seeing with all of their offers and the different scenarios that they're encountering. So that's what it's all about. Everybody stay positive. If you need any help with anything, we're happy to help. Just reach out to Penelope or me, and we'll see you on Shift Talk.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.